A very important panel discussion, which is Future Ready Schools. I'll just shorten it with diversity, which is one of the very important topic, which is one of the most important topic, though we have been listening about it since long. But what I feel, this is a topic which is much required to be discussed. NEP 2020 says all about it, and now we are well versed with it. But still, as Kavita ma'am in the morning very rightly, informed us about the involvement of AI. That's one of the diversity. One of the very important thing which Manjula ma'am said, and it always takes me to another world, which is understanding the requirements and needs of today. And I would say with diversity not only means to educate them, rather to celebrate the education. Also to let them face. Why to face? Handle the challenges which they are facing of this very complex and interconnected world. So I would welcome all our dignitaries for this very important topic today. My first question is to Kavita ma'am. Ma'am, how can Future Ready Schools ensure that all the students, regardless of the background or ability, develop the skills and competencies needed for the success of 21st century? We are talking about 21st century now, and fortunately I have just heard the generation from 1st of January will be the beta generation. So we have more challenges, so how to go about it?
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. I think we are already ready, aren't we? We are already ready. So we are just putting icing on the cake, terming it as a future readiness for the schools to be designed themselves for the future readiness. According to me, every school is doing their best, and every school is looking into these areas of becoming future ready, because within one vicinity there are 16 schools within the 2 kilometers. So there is a rat race of that we are the best. Meri kameez teri kameez se safed kyun? So we are going ahead with that. So future readiness is coming automatically, but still there are certain areas where we require to look into it specifically, where the intelligent question comes. So, like Kavita said, that personalized training, personalized aptitude, personalized interest, that's something which we need to look at. Now the teacher is teaching to the mass. Now we have to come back to the class. Secondly, we need to identify the learning style of the students. So it's very important giving one lecture is universal for all, which is now this particular impression is going to diminish gradually, and teacher becomes facilitator, and she needs to identify the learning style of the children. So she needs to cater to AI tools, she needs to cater to different learning style, kinesthetic learning, visual learning, auditory learning. She has to incorporate all that. Then comes to even the content. The children have to encourage to research. Research is the key tool for future success of the academics of any child. Now when our kids are going for a higher education, there is no classroom or teacher one-to-one contact. The students sitting in US or any other country, they are just having everything virtual, and it is research based. Only thing they have to produce the conclusion and data. So if the children are involved in research, that is going to help them. And in my school, I have started research with a basic elementary level from grade 1 onwards. So they know the terminology of hypothesis, they know the terminology of conclusion, they know the terminology of the questionnaire, interview, they know it. And data collection, they also know it. So research is a big tool which we need to teach our children. Also, when we come to social emotional development, that portion is also very important, because you must be hearing that in higher grades every child says that I don't like this and I want to end my life. This is the end of it. So immediately they come to the conclusion that they don't want to face any kind of challenge. There is no problem solving capacity. Bullying is taken at such a severe level that there are so many, adversities have happened. And children are, every third to fourth child is under some kind of a counseling or psychiatric. So we need to empower the children in social emotional quotient, where they are able to face the challenges in terms of having many life skill lessons, many internships, many problem solving projects, and also involving them in spiritual quotient. Until unless the child's his own heart does not speak out that this is right or wrong, the future is going to be a dark one. So spiritual quotient is very important. I am not telling spiritual quotient in terms of the religion or Bhagavad Gita or anything, but spiritual quotient in terms of what your conscience says, whether it is right or whether it is wrong. See, at the age of 16 or 17, the children are traveling out of India, and they do not know what is right or wrong, and they are not decision makers, and they get into the wrong trap. So until unless they are matured enough to identify what is right, what is wrong, this is what spiritual quotient is all about. We also need to prepare them for the adversity quotient. Adversity quotient, where there is a challenge at every step. Just now Devika ma'am was telling that the child fell down and the parent is saying that the teacher has to be terminated. It's a big challenge for a parent, big challenge for a teacher, and big challenge for a child whose parent is howling in the school. Because ultimately the child feels from inside that what's this going on? I am like, look at with big eyes that your mother has screamed, your mother had shouted. So these kind of adversities are there every time. Adversity in terms of academics, adversities in terms of their friendship, peer pressure, everywhere. So we need to empower them for adversity quotient also. Also technology. As you know, it's a boon and a bane both. You know, right way to use technology, right way to have the fruit of technology, and adverse effects of technology the child also should know. So the school is a center place where we can expose the child to all these life skills, the critical thinking, problem solving, communication. Communication is the biggest tool which is going to take them ahead for the success. And taking responsibility, involving them in some kind of innovation. So these are the few tools where we have to incorporate in our curriculum, in our teaching practices, in our extracurricular activities, and the environment has to be created in such a way that the child feels very confident and empowered. So we can make the school is ready for the future challenges.
Very amazing, ma'am. The best part, what can be explained well, rather than ma'am's word masked through the class. That's something which is really very deep, and we have to think. Research, as ma'am said, is one of the important quotient, and yes, spiritual self will always take you to the right self, and communication, one of the very important parts. Thank you for your insight, ma'am. My next question is to Kalpana ma'am. What role can project-based learning and real-world application play in preparing the students for an uncertain future?
Thank you, ma'am. And a very good morning to all the principals here to come on a Sunday morning. I know how challenging it is. So thank you, Mehman sir, thank you, principals, thank you for the question. Project-based, we all are already implementing in our schools, and it's nice that across, whether it's CBSE, ICSE, IB, IG, everybody has a component of project, and it is something we need to take it very seriously, because as Kavita ma'am said, we don't know what future holds for our children, which careers are going to be there. None of us can predict a standard 1 child, what he or she will do. A 10th standard child, if you speak to what do you want to become, very few are very clear-minded. Most of them don't know. So how we build our child, the responsibility, the onus, I think now more and more lies with us educators, with parents working, not having enough time for them. If we can take this responsibility of giving them very good project topics, that's something we can select. They need to be doing some kind of research. As Kavita ma'am said, AI can be wrong too. So how to research, how to take out from them that the essence of what we are looking for. And then obviously cut, paste, copy is there. So a Viva, along with just a research that the children do, if we can have an implementation of presenting a topic through research, and then the teacher, if or the students, anyone can question and have a Viva on it, then you know how much the child has understood. This kind of approach helps in problem solving, because that is something we all, like just now as Kavita ma'am said, a child fell and the parent was a difficult parent. That's a problem for us principals. Daily we are facing problems and we solve it. But this skill needs to be taught to the children. So this project method, if we do it seriously and not just because it's there and so to be done, but if done well, it is going to help our children in future for problem solving, critical analysis questions going forward. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and that reminded me, rather all of us will agree to it, that when we used to have Vivas in our schools, we were much prepared, aren't we? We were prepared more than the theory part, so that says all. Project-based learning, as ma'am said, enhances the capacity and capability of the students to work for a meaningful and exposes them to the real world. Thank you so much, ma'am, for bringing back that very important question, and definitely I will try to have certain things which is connected to Viva in this school. Thank you very much for your insight and input. Now my next question is to Deepika ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. How can school provide opportunities for students to develop essential life skills such as critical thinking, creativity and collaboration, the all C's?
Thank you very much, and I am glad that I am speaking after stalwarts who have already shared their vision with us. Good morning to all of you, and I think I speak to a room of like-minded individuals who agree that we are bringing up children. As schools, we don't have the luxury of coaching classes where they have to prepare them for success only. We have to bring up children and prepare them for life. And the best lessons that I have learned for the 21st century are from the past 20 centuries. If we talk about collaboration, communication, creativity, I know that Kavita ma'am and Kalpana ma'am have shared their vision. I will just share a few stories that are actually happening in our school and classrooms. I believe that this Indian word, seva, is very, very powerful. It's a small word. It does not really bring about a huge impact, and nobody sits up straight and starts paying attention as soon as you mention seva. But if you make 7-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 13-year-olds go through the process, our job becomes very easy. Because when you tell children that you do this and you will get grades, there is something that is very exciting, but it's momentary. But if we take our children week on week, every Saturday, to work in schools where the resources are not so abundant, we take them outside to the national park to clean it every week. We take them to the beach to clean up the beach every week. We are teaching them that we can't clean the Mumbai beaches alone. We need a team, we need to collaborate. We have to communicate with the world to tell them that if you want to make the world a better place, you have to do it together. The communication, the collaboration, nobody can do good work alone. That whole story becomes a lot more powerful when we have this tool of Seva with us, and it is very easily available to schools, because when you want to do something good, you will find your full team of teachers are standing there as volunteers. Your parents come in and they want to be a part of this volunteer community service team. We have seen it happen in our school. They want to do everything possible. We get collaborators from the industry who want to come in and donate free notebooks and free books for the schools that we work in, and the whole work becomes easier as it gathers momentum. We also find that teachers and children are very good at doing something for free. If you don't give them the lure of marks, if you don't give them the lure of grades, they become very happy and excited to do things. For example, our teachers came up with this project that we want to teach our grade 5 learners to create a new language. Now, just a new language without any outcome was not really something that was going down very well with any of us. So we said, okay, we want a language that will be universal in the school. It has to follow our principles of DEIJB, which is of course diversity, equity, inclusion, justice and belonging. And that is the theme that we wanted it to connect with, and the children of grade 5 came up with a sign language so that people who are outside the school and are challenged in different ways could understand. So there was a child in the group of 7 who came up with the language of how to use sign language to inform people if you are in a situation of danger, which can be either bullying or in a situation where there is physical danger or some place where they need help or intervention. They came up with the language, they created videos, they informed the parents, they did workshops for the secondary learners, they informed the didis and dadas of the school, and they had a whole project based on service for the school community, which also contributed to their creativity, to their sense of communication and collaboration. I'm sure all of us have hundreds of such stories happening in our schools every day, and it's wonderful to have this platform where we can share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. What a beautiful example for global collaboration, and all C's you have done in giving us the real example. And I'm sure the best part, you have added on the EQ along with all these, and the kids are very much ready to do it. Wonderful, and I'm excited to take few points from Devika ma'am. Thank you so much. Now my next question is to Sheila ma'am. What professional learning opportunities? Yeah. So my question to you is, ma'am, what professional learning opportunities can help teachers stay ahead of the curve in terms of technology, pedagogy and diversity, because they are also struggling with a lot of new developments.
Thank you so much for having me here, and a very good morning and happy new year to everyone. So I think before answering this question, I need to give some context to it. All of us are very aware of the NEP, and the NCF, which has kind of percolated from the NEP, has actually dug deep into the Gurukul system that prevailed in India, and it's a beautiful document. So it's a totally indigenous document, and it talks about the kind of immersive and holistic education that prevailed in those times. And it's basically talking about something called as the Panchadi, which has got these 5 elements, The first one being Aditi. Aditi is where you are actually introducing something to a student based on his or her previous learning. So you are actually scaffolding the learning process, starting from where the student can understand something. Second is Bodha, that is actually teaching the concept. The student is basically made to understand the concept. The third is abhyasa. That is where the child or the student is supposed to delve deeper and understand the concept by doing regular practice. Next element is prayoga, that is application. All along we've been talking about application, applying learning to real life. So this prevailed even in those days, you know, learning by way of applying what you have learned. And they have taken it a step further. They had something called as prasara, where the student was supposed to talk to his peers and the society at large about his learnings, about the application of his learnings. So all this prevailed then. And we are talking about the 4 C's and stuff now, and talking about Finnish education. I think NEP has done the right thing by bringing out this beautiful document. But if you see what I spoke of, only the first 2 components, that is Adhiti and Bodha, is where the teacher comes in. Rest of it, the Abhyasa, Prayoga and Prasara are the students' component. So gone are the days when you could have the teacher as a sage on the stage doing the best job of explaining stuff to students. We studied that way. We would never question. In fact, questioning was considered as an offense in our days. Like a teacher is the ultimate. Jo wo bol rahi wo sab sahi hai, suno, imbibe karo aur rakho apne paas. Gone are those days. Now it's all about the student being asked to do things, learning on his own, the constructivist approach. Construct knowledge by imbibing from various sources, not take some ready-made information from the teacher. The teacher becomes a facilitator. Now, having set a context to the question, I would like to now answer the question, ma'am. So, if a teacher is expected to facilitate learning and to make the learning very engaging and interesting, then she has to go beyond, the realm of teachings, in the sense that she has to learn how to design those classroom transactions. Very interesting pedagogy, very, very interesting engaging activities. Getting students to do things and learning from understanding. Now for that, she'll surely need a lot of help. And that's where professional training comes in, and that's why MCF is recommending 50 hours of professional development for teachers. So how can teachers remain ahead of the curve? I think a lot of onus lies on the management of the school. These 50 hours, the school management has to decide on what is it that the teacher needs hand-holding with. You can't have a one-size-fits-all theory. Every teacher brings with her own expertise. Some are very good with classroom transactions, some are very good with lesson planning, some are very good with setting assessments. Some are excellent at keeping students engaged with their stories and narrations. So you have to look at the need, make a need assessment, observe teachers, decide on what is it that each teacher requires, and accordingly provide need-based professional development programs for the teachers. And on her own, a motivated teacher can be a part of several professional development communities. There are so many of them, Facebook communities. There's one, Miss Kavita, I think she has a wonderful blog where she keeps putting up all her research details. So, and it's free for everyone to go and check out. There's so much learning that can happen online. With respect to technology, of course, they all go hand in hand, pedagogy, technology, and diversity. So, without technology, there's no way out. We all are now having to really delve deeper into technology, and we can make very good use of technology to make sure our learning transactions or teaching transactions are very, very interesting in the class. Thank you.
So wonderful, ma'am. You have summarized the Bloom's taxonomy so very beautifully, and I really appreciate the Adhiti and Bodha. What we say is connected to teachers. Hence, there is a tree which is called Bodhi tree, wherein we say that it's a place wherein you get a lot of learning happen, and it reminds me a dialogue which is from Three Idiot, ज्ञान हर जगह है, जितना चाहे ले लो, और जिस टीचर ने जितना ज्ञान लिया उतना ज्ञान उनको बच्चों को भी मिला. So thank you so much for this wonderful 5 collaborations of the word which I have heard for the first time though we have heard, but the meanings we have understood, and I'm sure we are going to implement. And teachers definitely are very important for today's generational learning. So we will be definitely taking a good care of that curve. Now my next question is to Deepa ma'am. Yes ma'am. Ma'am, so my question to you is, how can schools balance accountability measures with the need of flexibility and adaptability in diverse learning contexts?
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for having me here today. So, when we talk about accountability, I think, that's a very big word and holds a lot of responsibility, which schools are expected to take. So when we're setting environments that are diverse, learning environments, when we're looking at children, we need courage. So to set accountability, I speak about 4 C's. And those 4 C's are courage, connections, communication, and collaboration. So within a school setting, there has to be courage to be accountable, to take responsibility. We are going to take this forward. It's not someone else's job. I am going to take this step forward because I keep the children at the center of the learning process. And I have the courage to take it forward with all my stakeholders. So we normally see that, within a school system, you always have everyone telling you how you can learn, you can do your job the best. You have a parent today telling you how you can teach. You can have a student telling you, don't teach me in this way because it causes mental trauma sometimes because I don't want to take it, or the stress is too much. Right? You have leadership telling you, follow the T because we have limited resources, so work within this space. And then you have research telling you there is innovation around you, so work in a particular direction. So really, who do you listen to and how do you become accountable for what everyone is telling you when you may not be believing in everything within a school? So therefore, courage is an extremely important part of the accountability process. The second bit is connections. For us to understand really how the educational fraternity is taking accountability forward. Is it taking accountability in creation of new practices? Or is it saying, follow what was given to you and you will be safe? And you can teach better. And you can learn better and all your students will pass. We do that, right? 9th and 10th standard, we always say crack the exam. And you're going to get it there. Do the 10 years papers and you know your children will get that 99, 98, 97%. No one says, let's try a new practice. And you know what's going to happen when the children give their examinations. That's not something that anyone says. So making connections actually makes us accountable for the true learning processes that we need for our children. Making connections across the world to know what are best practices in learning. Making connections with new research to know how learning takes place. All this is so required in today's system. Communicating and communicating our beliefs also creates accountability. Normally we always say this, when we communicate something, we make a commitment. Whether it is written or verbal, when you say something and someone has recorded you, or you've said it in an open forum, you make a commitment to do it, right? I can't just say that, I said it, but it's okay, I won't do it. So communication is so important to create new learning contexts. New contexts for our learners. And of course, collaboration. When we hold hands together as a fraternity and we all say that we are going to look at best practices, we hold each other accountable. And when we are holding each other accountable is when we move forward. Because we always look back and we say, right, Ari, this one is doing this best practice, even I can try it out. Right? Today when Devika spoke about Seva, we said, yes, Seva is a good thing. Even I can try it out in my school. I may have been thinking about doing it but didn't know how to get my stakeholders. Well, other schools are doing it. When Ms. Kavita spoke about the spiritual aspect, you know, everyone gets scared about bringing spirituality. We are a secular country. But spirituality is different from that, right? And it is important for children. So how do we bring that forward? Yes, someone else is also doing it. We can too. So we hold each other accountable in that sense when we communicate and we collaborate. And so all these 4 C's are very important if we are to create accountability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and very rightly said. When we are courageous enough to take the accountability, all the 4 C's come automatically together. Now my next question is to Rakhi, ma'am, which is the interconnected question to these two. How can teachers be supported in developing the skills and competencies needed to teach in future-ready schools with diversity, ma'am?
Thank you, and I think I'm the last panelist. People have got a lot of ideas because I have stalwarts sitting with me, and luckily all of them are very, very good friends. So I'm going to be a disruptor here. I'm going to break the monotony and crack a joke. Are we okay for that? Yes. So there was this man who takes his wife to the doctor, okay, and says, "Doctor, doctor, look at my wife. Usko appendicitis ho gaya, aap operate kar do." Yes. So the doctor said, "I have done MBBS for 5 years, another 2-3 years MD. You don't teach me. Let me investigate, okay, and find out what's wrong with your wife." So rightly said, she did have her appendix infected. So the doctor operated the patient and sent the family back home. Exactly in a year's time, the same husband comes back to the doctor and says, "Doctor, doctor, मेरे wife को appendicitis हो गया, आप treatment कर दो." So doctor says, "Hey, you know, it's appendicitis हो ही नहीं सकता, okay?" So the husband says, "No, no, I'm sure उसको appendicitis हुआ, आप treatment कर दो." So the doctor says, "Listen, this organ, which is appendix, is only one in the body, and I've already treated last year. So appendicitis हो ही नहीं सकता है, एक ही होता है ना appendix." So what do you think that the husband responded? But doctor, wife तो 2 हो सकते हैं ना? The moral of the story is what? Sometimes when we are on the chair, there are lots of assumptions. Luckily, unluckily, I don't know how we take it. We are in a space where things are changing rapidly. Kavita spoke so wonderfully about AI. Even 5 years down the line, हम सोचते what is ChatGPT and वो ना Gen Z कर सकेगा. We will not be able to do. But today, I mean, we are all competent to handle technology. So something which was, you know, in the yesteryears is very, very predominant today. And who makes this change happen? Of course, leadership does, but the people who do the groundwork are the teachers. Now, I had this teacher, I'm only going to share anecdotes because I think that will put a very, very strong point. I had this teacher who would get a very poor rating whenever my LSI, my HODs would visit her class. And to me, I knew she was a fantastic teacher, right? But every time there was a leadership attending her class and looking at her, you know, communicating or conveying the class, she would get a very poor rating. So I said, okay, fine, maybe it's the leadership which is traumatizing her. Send a peer observation in the class. And again, the rating was back to square one. It was a very bad rating. I visited her class through camera, not physically. And the thing was, I saw that she was a fabulous teacher. Children were enjoying. Then I did a survey of the class with my students in the classroom. And these are, you know, those very, very, the secret kind of a community who would give a feedback after the teacher has, you know, transacted the class without the teacher knowing that, you know, the student is doing that. And they gave me a fantastic rating. And I was perplexed. I called my leadership and, you know, we were not able to decipher or break what was going wrong. Then what I said is just leave the teacher for 1 year. We will do no teacher observation, nothing with her. Let her just, handle. I am ready to take a risk for a year. And that class gave me the best performance. What I'm trying to say is spare your teachers. They have a lot of pressure. There's a family, there's a mother-in-law back home. You do not become the mother-in-law back in school. Right? Yes. But at the same time, you need to moderate. So if your systems and processes are right, if your protocols are in place, you let her run her show. Okay? You tell her this level of diversion is okay. You can experiment with your students, because after all, they are your students in your class, you are the boss. Okay? But beyond this point, if we see there is a red flag, you will be, answerable. So if the faculty feels that, she has your back, she is there to be supported, she will go up to the extent of experimentation. I'm not saying there are not black sheep in the family, there are, but there would be maybe a 2 to 3%. More or less, if they have chosen the profession, they know the demand of the profession. So a little bit of independence in the class is what leadership counts. Secondly, to equip. Like, I would give you an example of my school. Way back, we were a state board. We migrated to Cambridge board. Now we also migrated to the IB board. Okay? It's not that we are changing the teacher community left, right, center. You have the same community, understanding the systems, the philosophy of the board and doing better. So where is your teacher training? As one of my panelists spoke about 50 hours, NEP is insisting. There is a game plan why NEP is insisting. So coming back to your processes, if your processes are in place, if you know your teacher trainings are in place, you cannot have a teacher training if your school is till 1 o'clock, 1:30 to 2:30 you do a teacher training, it's not possible. That faculty who has left home, maybe staying somewhere in Mira Road and must have left home at 5:30. She wakes up early, take care of her family and come. 1 o'clock she is tired, you cannot have a training after that. It's inhuman. Okay? So are we investing our Saturdays right? Are we pre-planned so that in case she wants, say, a leave for any emergency, she knows what is the training plan for that particular weekend. So then she can, take a call whether she can, take care of her family commitment some other time. So, like, we unfortunately missed ma'am's session. And the moment we came to know she was talking about parenting and all the pain points, we said, oh God, I wish we knew she was handling that. We would have, not taken that cup of tea or taken the tea inside and come and listen to a session. So if things are pre-planned and informed, I think the teacher is the best person to take it forward. So 2-3 takeaways. One is, do not assume that every faculty is bad. Okay, as my example, if you want to trust, you trust blindly. Give her the diversions or the points to which she can divert. What is okay, what is not okay. So if you have your processes and protocols right day one, the teacher community will do. So in our school we do the CIDTL, which is a 1-year teacher training program, and we mandate every staff undergoes the teacher training. However, she may be a master's or a PhD, she has to still carry on with the training. We incentivize them. We are giving them 1 increment extra, stuff like that. We give them a few hours extra so that they are able to submit those assignments. We felicitate them. Just as we felicitate our students during academic excellence, we felicitate teacher excellence. So you motivating them, giving them the freedom to excel, have your systems and processes, give a lot of importance to teacher training. I think that sets the ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Very rightly said by Raki ma'am. If you need the right skills and competencies to be developed, you need to trust them and give them space so that they also basically enhances the skills of the students, which they know better than all of us. Thank you so much, ma'am. As we are running a little short of time, I would request the dignitaries to please answer, not keep it short, I would not be saying that, but to enlighten us with a few important takeaways and outputs and inputs. My next question is to Kalpana ma'am. Kalpana ma'am, how can future-ready schools leverage community partnership to provide real-world learning experiences and resources for the students from diverse backgrounds?
So I'll give an example what we are doing in our school. We are having a 1-month internship program for our standard 9, 10, 11, 12 students. So getting them future ready. 1 month internship is where they go and work and using the community. So the community is our parent body. We are using our parent body itself who have firms. It could be a law firm, it could be a manufacturing firm, whichever firms they have, which we all have that resource with us, which we need to tap into. So our firms, that is our parents, sign up with us. They give us the details of the firms. We ask our children, which firm would you like? A commerce, a marketing, where do you want to try this 1 month of internship? And our children go and work, knowing that it is our parents, that safety a little bit is there, with us comfort. Our children go and have a real life experience. So when we are exposing all the time theory, this is something different from the theory they are learning. It's a learning happening very much, and it's also getting them ready. Like we had one child who was autistic, and we were very worried going forward. What does this child do post 12? So he went to a hotel management hotel where he was given the kitchen. When they go for an internship in the hotel, they give them one week across different places that they have, audit firm departments. So he was in the chef, as a chef, working with the chef in the kitchen, and he loved it so much that he decided that this is where he wants to go forward, which worked very well for him as a career. There was another child who tried, he worked with directing films under them, because there was a studio who had signed up with us, and he's become a director now. So giving them exposure, but also there were people who went with the lawyers and said, oh no, never, that is not something I want to do. So it just gives them a little clarity when they have a real life experience versus just theory. In theory, all of us want money, but how? What is your passion? If you follow your passion and that is the work that you're going to do, you'll be excellent. And that is what we want to bring up. So we tap onto the community as well as expose them to real life through this.
Thank you so much for your input, ma'am. And I really would like to say we have so much of the knowledge, we have so much of learning. I really love when they become MSEC 5th grade learners. This is what we all are, ma'am. We are learning, on the regular basis. When ma'am gave me example, which I always say, give teachers space, that's really required. I needed it when I was a teacher. I always wanted it because I knew what is best for my class, and understanding and having faith on them, giving them the right direction, as ma'am said, and making them, exposed to all C's, and as ma'am rightly, very first ma'am gave us a lot of input, Kavita ma'am, for the 21st century skills. If we collaborate all of it together in the classroom, definitely we will be ready for a diverse learning, and as I said, for a happy learning and celebrating the education which we all are looking for under NEP. Thank you so much, all the dignitaries, and I really appreciate your valuable words and inputs. Thank you.